Okay, so these are our guest stars today. Welcome to ISABA's meeting, Eastside Connect, the small business solar town hall. Now the sun's on for everyone. I've been trying to think of exactly how to quip that. You know, the sun's always on for everyone, but now we've got a new opportunity, and we have Cooperative Energy Futures and St. Paul 350 as our guest stars and as our co-hosts today. And I appreciate them being here. And we're going to also just say thanks to our sponsors real quick for ISABA. And we've got that, just a reminder that we've got our recording going. So, and that we've been having a good time posting these things up on YouTube for our members who couldn't make it today to take a look at. And it's been a great option for me to actually encourage members to take a look at this content on various topics. So here are our sponsors, annual sponsors, and we've got some new sponsor highlights today too. So it's fun to just run these through. Ideal Printers, DV Creative, and Harrington Langer and Associates, State Farm and the Office of Juan Cervantes, State Farm, the Sane Foundation, M Health Fairview, St. Paul Federal, the St. Paul Port Authority, Highway Credit Union, Metropolitan State, Sunrise Banks, Walters Recycling and Refuse, and Health Partners. Health Partners Neuroscience Center has a big roof, and they're a new sponsor on the show that we're kind of introing this week. So welcome everybody to our topic today. We're going to be talking about solar power, and especially talking about how small businesses and residents can participate in solar power opportunities that may sound a little different than we've been used to. If you've been following this issue, this will sound great to you, and that the East Side's talking about it will sound even better. But I think you'll find some new things here to kind of expand your thinking about this opportunity. And I'm so happy to have Timothy Denherter-Thomas and Chelsea D'Armond on the show today to help me talk to you about it. But first, let's do some introductions for them so they kind of get a sense of who we've got on the show today. If you are a small business owner on the East Side, go ahead and give us a wave there. And who we got? We've got Chelsea and we've got Darren. That's terrific. Darren runs DV Creative. He's also a sponsor and board member of ISABA. Chelsea, tell us just a minute about your business.
Yeah, my husband and I have a electronics repair shop, and it's called TC Tubes, and we're thinking about changing the name, but for now it's TC Tubes. And we repair vintage electronics and sell parts. And maybe some of you know that being a small business owner, you have you work really, really hard, but you also have some control over your time. So I spend a lot of my free time working on energy issues, and that's my St. Paul 350 connection. We also founded an organization called St. Paul 350, which is focused on a rapid and just transition to clean energy. And we work at the city level, which is a really exciting level to work because it's so hands-on when you're focused on the neighborhood where you live and work. You can actually get things done, and it's exciting to see.
That's terrific. And we also can make alliances at this level. You know, this is a national issue, yeah. It's a state-related issue. It affects us all right now. We're all using power. And I love that vintage electronics also use the same power we're talking about. So it's a nice kind of sync up with your business too. Thanks for being on, Chelsea, and for saying another minute and also kind of putting on the context there for us. If you work with an East Side nonprofit or involved in a nonprofit in some way, give us a wave. So there we've got Andrea from Family Values for Life, Jean Melanson from Cornerstone, Robin from District 5, Payne Phelan Community Council, Jack Byers also from Payne Phelan. Hi, Jack. Timothy, did you raise your hand for nonprofitness?
Well, I guess I am involved in a nonprofit, but I didn't raise my hand.
Okay, and we'll get to you in a second. Let's see, Lori Seaver, District 1, and with the St. Paul Port Authority, a fantastic sponsor of ISABA. Randy Bloom with Midwest Special Services. Randy was our guest star last week. Thanks for being on, Randy, and being back. Elaine's with the Hazel Park Learning Center. Katie Matson Daly's with the Beloved Church. Ooh, so some other folks chiming in. Let's see. We've got Haley Ball from Urban Roots. We've got Elizabeth Dickinson, who's a fantastic neighbor of mine. Hi, Elizabeth. Welcome to welcome to the East Side from the West Side. Member of St. Paul 350. I think that's why you're on this meeting. But great to see you. Kai Lawson is sitting in today, and he let me know that he may have to leave early but he's from Aflac and new resident on the east side who just jumped in, was like, hey, let's get involved with stuff. And then, so let's see, if you were involved with a bank on the east side, give us a wave. That's Terry. Hey, Terry. Terry's from Premier Banks. He is not one of our sponsors, but Terry, we'd love for you to be one of our sponsors. We love banks. And we love banks that are working with small businesses and nonprofits and help making the east side a better place. Terry is also the esteemed mayor of North St. Paul. Am I right, Terry? Yes, the city of North St. Paul. So happy to have you. Go ahead, Terry. Say hi.
Nope. You said it. City of North St. Paul. We're if you've been downtown lately, we've got about $100 million of projects going on. So North St. Paul is moving in the right direction.
Hey, if you move a little farther south, we'll take you all in the association. You're the north side of the east side.
There we go.
And you're welcome. If you have roofs going on any of that development, let's put some solar power on it.
There we go.
All right, Timothy, welcome to the show. Glad to have you on from Cooperative Energy Futures, and I'm going to turn over hosting duties to you while you're doing your introduction.
Sure. Thank you all for having me. I live far to the west in Minneapolis, and I'm always really excited to connect with folks working in St. Paul, and I've been in touch with the St. Paul 350 group as well as with Paris for several years on this. I am general manager of Cooperative Energy Futures. We are a member-owned clean energy co-op. We have about 900 member owners across Minnesota, heavily concentrated in the Twin Cities. And we're focused on community ownership and control of local clean energy systems with a focus on approaches that are really deeply accessible to people, regardless of whether you own property or have upfront capital. So a lot of that is community solar, and I'm going to take a little bit of time today to talk about those opportunities. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I assume you can all see this well. Okay, and I'm just going to go through a really quick set of slides, and I might accelerate if you give me direction. That's helpful. So I just wanted to pull up this slide first because I think it's always really important to put things in context when we're talking about solar energy in Minnesota. This is just a chart of the different types of solar that we have being developed in the state. And that dark gray down at the bottom, which is called distributed, is basically everything that we usually think of when we think of solar on rooftops. So this is all the solar that's built on individual homes, as well as all the solar that's on individual businesses in the state of Minnesota that is directly powering those homes and businesses. And this is a really great approach for people who have the right roof space and who own property and who have the capital to access solar. If you can take out a solar loan, there's really good financials in it. And to the extent that we want to talk about that more on the call, I'm happy to talk about that model. But there's a number of barriers, and it definitely doesn't work for everyone. Primarily because a lot of businesses and residents either don't own property because you rent space that you're using, or don't have the right kind of roof, or have shading or other sorts of issues, or just don't have the capital up front to invest in solar directly. And that's really where these other two categories come in. The kind of light gray utility scale solar is actually solar that is developed and owned by Xcel Energy and other utilities in the state, just as part of our general energy mix. And that's increasing, but it's still kind of here and there when the utility decides that they want to do a project. Where we've seen a lot of growth and a lot of what we focus on as a co-op is this category that's called community solar, which is, again, larger projects. These can be ground mounted in rural parts of the state, or they can be mounted on large, like commercial industrial rooftops. We've even done some projects that are canopies over parking garages. And this has been a huge part of the growth of solar, and you can see how it's just kind of continuing to grow, and it's now over half of the solar in the state. I also just want to put the kind of scale in perspective here. Basically, since solar development in Minnesota started, way back in the 60s and 70s, up through the beginning of 2016, the state of Minnesota had installed about 37 megawatts of solar all throughout the state over those roughly 50 years, something like that. Since 2016, we've installed cumulatively over 1,000 megawatts of solar, which basically means in the last 4 years, we've built about 20 times as much solar energy in the state as in the entire previous history of solar development. Things are really taking off, and a huge piece of this is that we now have this option where residents and businesses can participate through community solar projects that don't have to be located on their physical property, don't require that you own appropriate sites for solar, and you can also build systems that are at a much larger scale, which makes it a lot cheaper. The thing that I want to emphasize is that within that community solar chunk, it's not necessarily very accessible right now. 85% of that is subscribed by larger corporate or institutional players. And some of these are large businesses in our community or municipalities. But a lot of smaller businesses, as well as most residents, are not a focus of the majority of these projects, which we think is a big challenge and a problem in terms of equity. As a cooperative, we really focus on developing projects that are focused on residential and smaller kind of community-based business subscribers. And so there's a lot of issues with that in terms of shaping the industry to make it really work for local communities. I just wanted to introduce a frame for how we as Cooperative Energy Futures think about community and what community solar should look like. There's really 4 pieces that we really want to emphasize. First is community access. We believe that everyone in our community should be able to participate in clean energy. That includes renters, that includes low-income households. We really believe that clean energy should be an approach that works for all of us. Community creation, we believe that community should lead. And I think having a conversation like this is a really great way to start that process by really saying, what does it look like to create solar for our community, our region, in a way that's accessible to all of our whole community. Ownership. So because we're a co-op, we really structure these projects so that community members are member owners of the co-op that actually owns these projects long run. So we're channeling profits back into the local community. The vast majority of these, quote unquote, community solar projects in the state are not community owned. They're usually owned by larger investors, sometimes even from out of state or even out of the country. And then finally, community wealth, using solar as a pathway for job creation, business development, and profit from local clean energy. And that should be accessible and benefiting our communities equitably. I just wanted to show a couple quick visuals of sort of what this looks like. This is a project that we developed in North Minneapolis. This is the launch event standing on the roof of Shiloh Temple International Ministries, where we've later built and operated a project that benefits the church, a neighboring mosque, and about 30 local residents. And just bringing together the faith leaders, the local elected officials, community members who are trained to install the project, and local business people who will provide services for it. Just briefly, we really have focused a lot on workforce development and training through these projects, and have had, in this case, again, North Minneapolis folks trained both in this project and other solar projects across the state. And then we've really tried to scale up. So this is a project that we worked on in the city of Edina on their public works building to host solar for residents in the city of Edina. They really wanted a residentially focused project. And then this is in downtown Minneapolis, the Ramp A Community Solar Garden, which is over the Ramp A parking garage next to Target Field. You'll notice that none of these pictures are from St. Paul. We have not had any success in getting a project in St. Paul, which has been frustrating both for us and for many community members, like many of the folks in St. Paul 350. And there are broader structural issues why I think St. Paul has really been underserved with community solar issues in general, in that most of the industry is focusing on large projects that are in fields in rural parts of the state, but there's a state law that says that you can only serve subscribers in the same or adjacent county. And there's just not that many big rural places in obviously Ramsey County, but even in the adjacent counties. So there's been not that much focus on serving residents and small businesses in St. Paul. We have been very focused on how do we tap owners of larger commercial industrial buildings to agree to host community solar, as well as talking with the school district and other sites in the community that could be a place for community solar that could benefit local businesses and residents. I wanted to just briefly, sorry, I'm just going to quickly check the chat because see if there's anything that I need to address here. Cool, those look like all good comments, thank you. I just wanted to briefly go over some of the roles for businesses in the development process. This 8-step piece here is really what we do in terms of developing solar for the whole community. It really starts with securing sites. And again, on the community solar end, where's my clicker? There we go. Oh, I'm going too fast now. On the sites end, when we're talking about these larger community solar gardens, this isn't necessarily something that an individual small business is going to have the capacity to host themselves, because to really get to the scale where it makes sense to connect, put power onto the grid, and have lots of different businesses and individuals share it, you need a large roof. We're targeting buildings of roughly 80,000 square feet or larger. Again, that's the roof space, not the floor space square footage if it's a multi-story building. The host of that project doesn't have to invest or put up upfront capital. They're basically just leasing their roof space, and can also be a subscriber. They can get part of the energy benefits from that project. We have to then go through and get an interconnection through the utility, basically get Excel's agreement to put power onto the grid, select and manage installation contractors. And there's obviously businesses in our community that can help with the install and also provide support in the workforce development, local business development efforts, because there's people qualified in the contracting industries that are related to that. Obviously, we go through the whole zoning permitting process, project financing. We have had some discussions with businesses that have significant taxable income, particularly passive taxable income, to actually consider participating in the financing of these projects to reduce their tax liability through tax credits. Again, you need a certain scale to have that make sense for a community solar project, although smaller projects for your own roof, that's a benefit any business can take advantage of. Engaging community subscribers. So again, we work in close partnership with community-based organizations to sign up individuals and small businesses as subscribers who are basically getting a reduction in their utility bill from the value of clean energy. And businesses can participate directly or help engage people in their community, their employees, their clients, all that sort of thing. I will just do a really quick aside that it really matters what the compensation structure is for the subscriber based on state law. And this is where it gets complex and in the weeds, and we can go into the details in question and answer, but basically right now, there's been some changes that make it really hard to serve businesses, smaller businesses, as the majority of the subscribers of a community solar array, because the compensation for small businesses is not really any different than what the compensation would be for a very large corporation or institution, even though many small businesses have a higher electric rate because you're paying at a small general service rate. We are involved in some state policy changes to change that. And if those state policy changes go into effect, it'll be much easier to serve very small businesses, especially if you don't pay per kilowatt for your demand on your utility bill. I'll leave it at that. There's a lot of technical weeds we could go into there, and happy to discuss more in questions. We obviously have the ongoing technical management of the project, and then ongoing subscriber management, working with individuals and businesses that are participating. And again, this is an area where there's opportunities to subscribe and participate. Large businesses can be kind of more of those anchor subscribers. Smaller businesses can just be ongoing subscribers to the project. Again, in general, with community solar, a subscriber is not paying anything up front. You're just paying monthly for the energy that's being generated at a rate that's lower than the savings you're getting on your utility bill. So it's an immediate cash flow positive way to participate in clean energy. I just wanted to really quickly highlight, there's a lot of benefits here. I know that we're not necessarily used to thinking in terms of megawatts, but we tend to think in the solar industry in terms of megawatts of projects. This is a large array. It's about an equivalent of 150 households worth of energy use. By building a project of that size, we're generating around 900,000 in net savings and reduced energy costs over revenue to the commercial property owner that has the roof. It also has some roof benefits in terms of extending life and reducing cooling costs. Again, you can do this on 7 to 8 acres of open land, but how many sites like that do you have on the east side? 150,000 in net savings to the host through subscription benefits. And again, this is reduction in utility costs. Because we're a co-op and as we're generating profit, we're returning that back to the community. There's about 800,000 in member dividends over 25 years. And then there's some job creation. So the intensive installation work on the front end, and then ongoing operations work over 25 years. And this is really an opportunity to build community. One of the things that's most exciting about this is the way that it can bring individuals, organizations, businesses together to create a climate solution that really can work for everyone. I'm going to stop there. I did want to just take a step back and say, again, there's lots of other ways you can do solar, and there are some ways that you can do solar that work very well to install solar on the roofs of individual businesses. The thing I will just say as a caveat is it's harder to finance those without the individual business owning the property and taking on debt. It can still be very cash flow positive. It can be a great way for businesses to do it. We as a co-op have not focused on that approach as much just because it's not as broadly accessible or as scalable, but we really support it. We think it's a great way for individual businesses to participate as well. And there's some great bulk buying programs that can be launched around that as well.
Thanks.
So I'm going to stop.
Perfect. Yeah, if you, so there are a couple questions from the chat, and you started to allude to one as you got into the 25 years. Terry asked, what's the life of a solar array these days?
Yep. So the warranted life is 25 years. There is equipment warranty and production warranty in place that the solar panels will continue producing energy. There's actually a kind of mild degradation in energy production over time, but by the end of 25 years, they're warranted to produce 80% of their year one capacity. Now, that doesn't mean that after 25 years, the system is done. We've seen solar arrays, even back from the 70s that are still operating. A lot of those are, not quite as modern equipment, so they're not producing a ton of power, but you will get energy production on a continuous basis over time. It's just sort of the question of it will reduce slowly over time, and how much do you spend maintaining it at a certain point when it's low production.
Makes sense. At the 25-year mark, does the co-op do something with that array then to upgrade it or replace panels?
The default assumption, again, because we're kind of locked in with long-term contracts with the utility, is that at that point we decommission the system. We actually remove it, take it down, and we're done. Now, we obviously have the option, if economic conditions are right and everyone wants to keep going, to say, okay, we're just going to sell this equipment now to the building, and there'll be some new costs to hook it up to the actual building's meter if there's enough usage there. Or we have maybe in 25 years, there'll be some new community solar program or something like that, where we can say, we're just going to extend the life of this, or we're going to put 2045 era solar panels on the same racking. There's all sorts of things we could do in 25 years. And I can't tell you exactly what's going to make sense 25 years from now, but if nothing else is decided roughly 20 to 24 years from now, our responsibility is to take it off the roof.
Okay, that's helpful to know. And, we're all young here, and we're getting younger every day. So, 24 years, what the heck? No problem. We'll be ready to get up there and do something new. We had some other good questions. I also want to welcome Stephanie Haar from Jane Prince's office. Hi, Steph, Eastside resident and often a guest and contributor on the show. Good to see you, Stephanie. Did anybody else join in the midst while we were kind of getting going? No, I think everyone else looks like they were here. So Timothy, there were a couple other questions. One of them was, give us an idea of an example of an 80,000 square foot roof on the east side. If we were thinking, as you pointed out, like we're gonna have just a whole lot of open pasture on the east side. Though on the Phelan corridor, Lori Sieber also points out a little later that St. Paul Port Authority, through their PACE program, has developed solar on roofs for the use of those business centers. which is great. You know, it's not like the city of St. Paul is starting at zero for rooftop solar. So it's not something that's completely unknown to us. The creating a larger community array that the community can buy into and use, I think is the benchmark we're trying to get up over. Is that right?
Sorry, was that a question to me?
Yeah, that's what you were saying. Like the city of St. Paul hasn't, you haven't
right.
done a cooperative in St. Paul. That's the difference.
We haven't done a community solar project in St. Paul I mean, we haven't done one for sure, and I'm not actually aware of there being a community solar project located in St. Paul at all.
Got it.
So yeah, there are plenty of businesses that are doing individual solar for their own use. This is just a question of how do you scale it up and make it accessible for people who can't do it themselves.
So Elizabeth chimes in and says, you know, a roof like Harding, that high school has a big enough roof for this. What's another, you know, if we were just kind of looking around the east side, what are the big roofs? Do we?
Yeah, I mean, I know that we had some discussions. I know Vamela is doing its own solar, but that's obviously a great roof for this sort of thing. Some of the old kind of brewery facility buildings were a really good fit. We were looking briefly, Paris, I'm not going to remember even the name of the.
We went down to the Hams Brewery site. So Jack, that's right in your wheelhouse there. And we talked to Everest about it, the owner, but we couldn't quite get over the hump. They just weren't that interested. You know, so like, how do we use, and we thought that's great. What an iconic site to start something like this that would serve the whole east side. It may be an opportunity to get back to them, you know, so especially if we've got some other folks who are interested, and maybe you've got a connection, Jack, we can get a chance to talk with some folks there. So Timothy, was that the one you're thinking of? Ham's Brewery was one we went to look at. We've talked to Lou just a little bit at Vamela, but we haven't managed. They've got more roof than they're using even for their array. So they've got room on their roof. The Hillcrest development also came up a little later here. And Lori, this is a good question for the Port Authority. The Port and the city are taking suggestions on their master plan options for Hillcrest right now. Is the opportunity to think about a big array like this something that could be in the cards? Go ahead, Lori.
Well, I do know I am not the expert or project manager involved with the Hillcrest project, but I can tell you that the Port Authority is very interested and is looking at all different forms of energy savings for Hillcrest. As far as a community energy solar plan, I don't know if that's been considered or brought on the table, but you know, we are still taking input on the project. People can still submit suggestions and input on the city's website because the city is still in charge of the master plan. And I think that they're continuing to take comments through April 26th or April 16th, I think it is. So, you know, if anybody wants to go on and list this, that's, you know, good points. We want to hear everybody's ideas. But, you know, the Port Authority, we have been involved, like I said, with this PACE program. We've actually partnered with 63 counties in the state of Minnesota and have helped with solar panels on barns in small towns, you know, all over the place. And so our goal is to someday actually build some net zero buildings. So we definitely are looking at all forms of energy savings and opportunities.
So Lori, you know, I've dropped this into the chat. I wonder if the St. Paul Port could be an ally for figuring out how we would cite one of these larger opportunities that, you know, especially Isaba's thinking about this from the perspective of small businesses. Small businesses that don't have an appropriate roof or don't own their building, like this is their option for getting in on a solar power credit that would lower their utility, which is one of those things coming out of the pandemic that we just can't ignore. Like that's a really good idea. For residents too, like residents who can't put solar on their roof, can't afford the initial startup cost, especially low-income residents and all residents on the east side, I think would be a good candidate to be subscribers. So I'm talking to district councils now too, right? This is a great option. It's zero down. The issue is actually having a large enough site to get this done, you know, so that east side residents and east side businesses could both participate. And I wonder if we could work together, Lori, with some of what the Port Authority knows, or if you would help direct me to the right person at the port to just think about like, how can we do this? This is one of those things that would really benefit the small businesses and residents on the east side.
Right, I can bring it back to the port staff, and we'll follow up definitely with you, Paris, and let you know, because yeah, this is a good idea. I can personally speak. I live in the Battle Creek area of St. Paul, and our neighbor has a huge roof, and he got a new roof, and now he just had solar panels all put on his roof and his garage, but he has the perfect roof for that. So all of us neighbors around him are like, well, we couldn't do that. No. And he's like, well, I think you could probably buy energy from me in some way.
Yep, that's basically the model we're talking about. Randy mentions that the MSS roof is 24,000 square feet, and it brings up this question for me, Timothy. The St. Paul Port Authority and the ISABA started with developing the Phelan Corridor. We've got some big roofs on Phelan. Could an MSS and somebody next door or something like that be a good candidate for stringing some of this together? And just, you and I have talked about this before, but what do you think about that kind of idea?
Yeah, in theory, it can work. The challenge is that we basically have to connect to the electric grid at a single location. And that basically means that if you have several different buildings, you're talking about actually running wire between the different buildings, usually underground in an urban context, which gets to be really expensive if it's more than just like two buildings that are next to each other on the same street. If they're literally right next to each other, and especially if you don't have to go under a road, that's definitely viable. If you have to go under a single road or alley, we should take a look at it. It could be viable. If it's like 5 blocks apart, probably not.
Makes sense. And Randy, so the question for you to go back with would be like, what about your neighbor across your parking lot? What's their roof look like? They have 60,000 sitting on their roof. That'd be part of the issue there. So yeah, we're kind of looking for one contiguous site makes the most sense. So Jack asks a great brewery related question, and Jack, I'll read it off here, but if you want to dig into it a little bit more, just say so. With the brewery, he says, and other rehabs, the big question would be about how to cover the costs and an integral part of the whole project financing rather than an additional burden beyond the building rehab. Any talking points for selling that aspect and how to make the numbers work? Jack, do you want to just finer point your question here so Timothy understands it and is right on target with it?
I don't want to speak for the brewery owners, but for any large rehab of that size, there's already issues with plumbing, heating, with the roof, with the windows, with the foundations, with the walls, you name it. And so just, those things are really, really tough to do without adding on. And so, but it seems like a really good idea if you're thinking about the future and you're thinking about, heating and cooling or just, just energy for a complex of that size.
So what I wanted to just make really clear is in our standard approach, we're not asking the building owner to take on any of the financing costs of building the solar array. We're actually paying them a payment for the roof. Basically, you can think of this as you're agreeing to host a project on your roof and you're getting paid to use the right of your roof space. And then you can participate in using the power just like anyone else in the community. The one thing, which, I guess what I'm saying is there's no additional burden. Now that in and of itself doesn't help all of the other rehab issues you were just talking about. The one thing that we've never actually done this on a project, but we're pretty sure that it will work, is that if you need to replace your roof membrane for some unrelated issue, we can roll the cost of that into the financing of the solar and take that off the building owner's balance sheet. Now that will mean that if they're subscribing, they're paying a higher rate for their energy because they're basically paying for the cost of the roof and the cost for their energy. So it's not like that cost just goes away, but we can take it off balance sheet so it's no longer debt they have to take out.
Thank you.
Yeah, Jack, that's a really good question. Appreciate that for sure. And what we discovered when we looked at the Hams Brewery site is that they have a lot of acceptable roof right now. You know, the question is like, are you going to be replacing this roof anytime soon, like in the next couple of years? They had a pretty good looking roof for where this could go. The question was just getting up over their level of interest. And I'll say one thing here. So we've got another couple chiming in about schools. Lori mentions Johnson High, which we've also looked at. It's not quite as big as Harding, which is surprising, right, Lori? Because they've just done a renovation and their roof is brand new. But she also mentions the ice arena next door there, too, including that space might also kind of get us closer. The schools have been a bit of a uphill battle, haven't they, Timothy and Chelsea and Elizabeth and others who've been on this. The schools seem like they'd be a great choice for this, but they have hit the hurdle on a couple of different spaces, and we have just kind of stalled there. Timothy or Chelsea, you want to say more about where we are with schools?
You want to take that one, Chelsea?
Well, we've been working on, I mean, Elizabeth has been working on this too for a long time, and we've got tons of interest and support. Like our council member Jane Prince is very supportive, and school board members are very supportive. Students are excited about it, but there's just a lot of bureaucracy involved in trying to just, like, the school district determining if they want to own the panels or what shape are their roofs in, and there's just bureaucracy that we've got to cut through, and we're working on it, and there's a lot of momentum and interest, and part of this process has shown me just how much support and interest there is in the community in general. And so I'm really excited about this conversation because business owners might not have those same bureaucracies to cut through that we're dealing with the schools. And so that interest from the community is out there, and it just it would be exciting to get something going. And whether it's a business or a school, we'd just love to see it either way.
And could I add just one more thing? One of the strategies that we're doing is having a school board candidate forum on Wednesday, April 28th. It'll be live streamed on Zoom and probably YouTube. And a lot of the focus of that is going to be on energy concerns and specifically around solar on the schools. And we're going to try and ask for as many really specific and measurable things as we can, starting with actually asking, haven't talked to Timothy yet, but asking for Timothy to do a presentation to a committee of the board, which is a separate school board meeting, so that the board can be educated about this. Because one of the big challenges is that school board members are not educated about solar. And so they rely on what facilities department tells them. And if the facilities department doesn't understand it themselves, or and have incomplete or erroneous information, that's what they pass on to the school board. And it makes it very hard to get anything going if there's a lot of facts that are missing or erroneous assumptions going on about solar and how it could work in a cooperative setting for the schools. Thanks,
Elizabeth. Yeah, so it would be great. What I'd love to do is just kind of compile some action items. Some things are coming straight out of this meeting, which is the best. This is the reason why we have meetings, right? One of them is just a dialogue about Hillcrest. So, and they want to hear from us anyway, everybody, you know, so it's one of those things like, let's chime in and talk about how something like this could be considered at Hillcrest and at least have it on the radar. That would be lovely. Really good. The second is, Elizabeth, you know, thanks for mentioning the candidate forum that you have coming up. Love to just put that on our calendar and direct people to listen in and learn a little more about what's going on in the public level of discussion at that level. I also just want to say greetings to Representative Jay Shong, who's taken a minute out of a busy legislative session to drop in to the meeting. Great to see you, Representative. Thanks for listening in. Really an awesome opportunity that we have today to talk about a solar power opportunity that could benefit residents and small businesses. And that's the real difference here. I think that's the thing that has captured my imagination about this, is that whether or not you have the perfect roof, or whether or not you own it, this is a way for you to participate in this work if we could all together as a community have one of these located in our county. And when we talked about this to start off with, I think this should be located on the east side. Like, let's put it in our community. Let's not wait for it to go over to Highland Park or go up on the site over at the Ford site. Like, no, let's get this going on our side of town so our residents can see it, can know that it's for them, and can buy in. And that I think you haven't had any trouble with subscriptions, right? 900
No.
subscribers and lots waiting. So the issue is figuring out how we get the sites together. And Chelsea mentioned, our main action item, which is how do we talk to our colleagues in the business community who could make the decision? There's very little bureaucracy at the top of some of the businesses that we're talking. That's the advantage of running a business. So say my business colleagues. So yeah, that would be, Chelsea mentioned it at the top of the call. She can choose what works for her schedule, and so she can work on energy. Thank goodness. Tell Tyler we're excited about that. Continue to work that deal. So just another question or two, it looks like in the chat, we've had some conversation. And Timothy, you notice what's coming up here. Baldinger Bakery, Hmong Village was mentioned on a sideline as well. Like, how big are these roofs? That, we're stretching to try to get to the right roof size for us. Let's look again at what might look like a possible deal in the Phelan domain as well. So that's kind of a third action item that I see for us. Any questions folks want to just bring right out of their, I want to look at what's in the chat for a minute again and make sure I haven't missed anything. And anyone want to mention something here or make a comment at the end of the hour?
The other thing I'm thinking about, and maybe Stephanie could talk about this, about what position and what role does the St. Paul City Council play in the Hillcrest development, and what would be the best way to get them on board for making sure that any of the industrial buildings that are put up at Hillcrest might have or consider having community cooperative solar on them?
That's a good question, and I don't know if I know exactly the answer to it. I think that since the Port Authority is taking the lead in that project, City of St. Paul is overseeing the planning of it, but it seems like this would not exactly fall in the planning zoning realm. It's more in the role that the Port Authority has. And when we've talked to the Port Authority, they have been very supportive about green energy in general in their development. So I think I would think that an important first step is to find out what their position would be on incorporating community solar into this project, into the Hillcrest project, and then figure out how the city could either advocate for that or support it.
So you're saying start with the Port Authority is your basic point.
I think so.
And like I said, I can bring this back to our office and talk about it. I will share with you that any business that moves into a port business center or has port financing, we actually have the business owners, they have to sit down and go through, we educate them on what LEED is and LEED certifications. So we, from the start, want the businesses to be looking at all the opportunities with energy savings and how in the long run, spending a little more money up front actually is best for the business and the climate in the long run. But the whole, this community garden thing, this has, as far as I know, and like I said, I'm not on the Hillcrest team. So I'm, not actively involved in that, but to the best of my knowledge, no one has ever brought up anything about community solar. So I will mention it at our next staff meeting. And like I said, have someone follow up with Paris and, let people know. But again, like I said, it never hurts to try and cover all bases. So I would still go, writing comments during this comment period too.
That's great. Thanks so much, Lori. I think sometimes we are and this is where Elizabeth's work with the city council or with the school board makes a lot of sense, right? We hear rooftop and we think it's all the same thing. Like rooftop solar. Well, yeah, okay, if the business wanted to do it, then they would. And a lot of businesses do, and they have. And that's where the conversation stops or stalls. Like, we're talking about something a little bit different here. And I think that's why we're doing this. Let's get this conversation to broaden. And already the comments that you all have made and the questions that you've asked, prove that we're on the right track here. Let's have a broader conversation about how we learn about this different thing and where it fits into our community. So yeah, so really appreciate that. Looks like, go ahead, Elizabeth.
I was just going to say it's very, very hard because I notice it in every single presentation that Timothy has ever done, frankly. It's so hard for people to get that the host site is not being asked for upfront money. They are not being asked for upfront money. And you have to say it about 3 times because it really just kind of sounds too good to be true. So I think understanding the financing, that Timothy finds investors who are getting a return, and that even the costs of roof upgrades or roof membranes can be factored into the financing. I think it's it takes a number of times for people to hear the same information to really have it penetrate. It did for me, so I don't think it's unusual. So, it just takes a lot of us out there being advocates for it, mentioning it and talking about it. And really, because, I just firmly believe that Timothy explains it better than almost anybody. That, having him in to talk about this stuff so that people can start to wrap their heads around it.
The other thing about it that it seems like people have a hard time grasping, but is also to me, one of the most exciting parts is the cooperative ownership. And that's really where clean energy becomes accessible to whoever wants to sign up for it. And we know that in St. Paul, I think now we're a majority renter city. And so being a host site for cooperatively owned clean energy means that you're giving people an opportunity to access clean energy who wouldn't otherwise have it. And that's what I think is really cool about it. And that's one thing that we're trying to get across to schools and businesses too. This is another way to make another kind of connection with your surrounding neighborhood. And it's something that people really value and get excited about.
Yeah, I think the environmental justice part of it, the fact that this can be then made available to the people that are just so badly affected by pollution or by lack of economic opportunities is just so important. It's kind of a cornerstone of this work.
Elizabeth, excuse me, let me just break in for a second. Representative Shang, do you want to just say what you want to know? You had to dive. You had to jump. Sorry, he also just mentioned that he is the chief author of the Hillcrest Bonding Bill, which includes funds for energy, environmental analysis, and net zero energy. That's for the site itself. Again, this is a bit of that shift. It's not just, and this is what Chelsea's saying, it's not just an opportunity to serve the site itself. It's an opportunity to be a hero.
Yeah.
With the community. And guess what? You're talking to a business association that loves to make that kind of thing visible. Let's really celebrate whoever we get to come forward on this. When we get this closed, it's going to be beautiful because we can talk about it massively. Lori mentioned Sunray. That's a fantastic opportunity in District 1. I would think the Sunray Shopping Center and right next door, Sunray Lanes, and right across the street, the new building, at the Conway Center. I wonder if that dome will be flat topped at all. Probably not. It's a dome. But anyway, there's some options right in District 1 too that we should not ignore that are opportunities for more conversation. Elizabeth, didn't mean to cut you off. Did you want to say one other thing about that?
No, I think you've said it really well, and it looked like Representative Jean, well, I guess he disappeared again. All right.
Did Representative Shong pop back on? Oh no. Oh no. Okay, he said he had to run. But here, okay, so that's the final kind of to-do item that I see from this part of the show, and we're just about ready to chime off. So we're going to do some announcements. Is to contact Representative Shong. Like, let's make sure that people that care about this, care about the East Side and are our representatives, know what we're talking about. Does that make sense? And know that we have access to resources that can help explain if we can't adequately explain what we're talking about. Okay. Thank you so much. Great dialogue. You know, clearly this is one of those ideas that we want to figure out how it lands in our backyard. And let's have some time for some announcements. I'll drop some announcements in the chat, but I'll invite Andrea to go ahead and make an announcement at the top. Go ahead, Andrea.
Morning, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Andrea. I am the Jumpstart to the New You coordinator with Family Values for Life. We are going to do a I Heart Mom event on Sunday, May 2nd from 1 to 3 p.m. Our tentative location is going to be at Johnson High School. And I do have another feeler out. I won't throw it out there yet, but that's what we're hoping for. So those of you who have good vibes, send it out. But I want to ask if you all, I want it to be a community event. The purpose of this, I know we've had a lot this year with just the pandemic, and, you know, on the East Side, there's a lot of single moms, you know, that are, the single moms is how, I'm a single mom myself. And so those with little ones, unless someone helps them, you know, connect with someone for Mother's Day, it may go unnoticed. And so, you know, I really want moms to feel special this year. And I want to spread some love to the mothers. And so we normally in the past, Family Values for Life has done like a small like Mother's Day barbecue. But I know when things are opening up, I want it to be safe. And so I'm thinking of a drive-through event. And so just to have resources, some food, gifts for the moms. And so I did have a meeting yesterday. I know some may have not been able to make it, but I'm having another meeting on Monday where we can all just get together and collaborate on what it looks like and how our communities can help, you know, come together and just be a blessing to the moms. So if you would like to come, I will drop my information in there. I do see several people who are on here that were on yesterday. Randy, I want to shout out. Thanks, Randy. Jean, Elaine. And so it was awesome to see you all in the meeting yesterday. And I want to especially thank you, Paris, for helping me with this, just getting me connected with people in the community. And so we are excited about it and looking forward to it. If you're not able to be there at the meeting, and you can hear my little one.
That's Elijah.
Okay, and so if you can't be at the meeting, just send me an email. I'll drop it in there, and then we can get more information. So I hope I've given you an outlook of what it was really quick. And so thank you for this space, Paris, and I hope to see you all.
Terrific. Thanks, Andrea. Absolutely. One other announcement, ISABA is working on pulling nonprofits together, and a number of the nonprofits that were on this call were a part of that in the first round. We're going to come back together on April 22nd at 10 a.m. just before our regular Eastside Connect meeting. So I'll be sending an invite to all of the ISABA nonprofits and invite you to join. And Andrea, we can do another little, whatever you're working on with this project then can also be queued up at that time too. There are a couple other announcements I just dropped in the chat. One, a fantastic entrepreneur on the East Side, a child who started a great business. It was featured on the Golden Shovel blog and podcast recently. So there's a link there to that as well. This has been a fantastic conversation. I see some other things going on. Ooh, Dine St. Paul. Oh, did Chelsea jump on? Chelsea, there you are. Chelsea, do you want to talk about Dine St. Paul real quick?
Sure. Hi, thanks, Paris. So yes, I work for Visit St. Paul, and in partnership with the City of St. Paul and the Housing and Redevelopment Authority, we were allocated some money to support St. Paul restaurants. So if you go to that link in the chat, we partnered with Tish Jones, who is a spoken word poet, and the mayor's in that video there. It's really powerful video. So I encourage you to give that a watch. We have a restaurant guide if you're looking for dine-in and takeout options. It's filterable. If you see a restaurant on there that is, or if you don't see a restaurant on there that you would like on there, email me and let me know, and I'm happy to add it. And then you can enter to win. So you can basically pledge your support for St. Paul restaurants. We send you weekly inspiration emails, and then we're picking one winner per day for a $50 gift card to a St. Paul restaurant. So yeah, please feel free to engage and share what you're eating. And it's going to be going on for another couple months. So thanks, Paris.
Hey, Chelsea, just one more time, like one way we can interact with that is we can put up our favorite East Side restaurants. Am I right?
Absolutely, yeah. Just use the hashtag Dine St. Paul, whether it's on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. And then we're resharing and featuring photos and whatnot too. So
Okay, that sounds great. So that's something we can do to really work on that. One of the major ways. Ooh, Lori, talk about Booyah.
Okay, so St. Pascal's, which is on White Bear and 3rd, were not able to do their fish fry this year, and that's their major fundraiser. So the men's club is having a Booyah this Sunday. It's starting at 10 a.m. and goes until they run out. It is a pickup, takeout only, and it is a big container of it for like $17. They always sell out. So if you want some, it's good to head out there early. And the information is on Isaba's website too, correct, Paris? Now I can tell my husband I did my job.
Randy, go ahead and make your announcement and we'll sign off.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for Paris for what you're doing here and connecting everybody. MSS has an opportunity. We are looking to recruit new members to our board. It would be a two-year commitment starting roughly in October of this year. And we are looking to achieve a couple goals. One is to diversify our board and include, if possible, leaders from the East Side. So if you might be interested in our mission, serving people with developmental disabilities, help give us direction, share your expertise, and or if you know somebody who might be a good fit, please reach out to us. We greatly appreciate it. And I can be reached at 612-581-5570 or my email, rbloom@mssmn.org.
Randy, just drop those in the chat. Lori has put the address for Booyah. Ooh, PPP loans have been extended until May 31st, Terry says. Want to make sure everyone has that opportunity. That was going to be a March close, but that is open back up. So that's terrific. I've been referring folks to Terry. That's great. Thanks, Terry, for that. Fantastic. All right, let's sign off here. I've got more updates for you around civil unrest as well, but we're going to save them for next week. Hopefully we'll all stay safe and healthy until next week, and we can get back on and connect again. Next week, we're going to be talking with Maggie Lorenz, another fantastic Eastside nonprofit and Isaba member, about the Wakan Teepee Center development at the Bruce Vento Nature Sanctuary. Totally awesome. Jump on, and we'll look forward to seeing you then. If you have any questions or want to connect in any way, go ahead and shoot me an email this week, and I'll be working on getting you all some to-do action items based on today. So thank you so much, Chelsea, and thank you, Timothy, and everybody for a great conversation. We'll see you next week.
All right.